when I'm on call, I build my life around being on call. I don't go out. I'll just be in my house or I'll be at the hospital. And that's the two places I'll go. And I just feel like I don't have control over my time or control over my attention or focus. Just that kind of feeling like a bomb's going to go off. I can't fully relax.
If I'm going to get interrupted, then it's not worth it. And you can see how much that shrinks your life and stops you from being the person that you want to be.
I don't like the sound of my phone when I'm on call. It like gives me like an emotional response.
Incredible doctors who aren't living their life in a way that's really aligned with them while they're on call. They're putting their lives and they're putting your best self to the side because you're on call. And there are solutions to this. You believe that by not investing and creating that flow space for yourself and then therefore not getting interrupted during flow, you believe that you're avoiding negative emotions, but you're not. You're just trading them for different negative emotions, perhaps at a different time.
Hello, my beautiful friends. My name is Dr. Becc.
And I am Kristeen Barker, and this is Am I Doing It Wrong? A podcast for doctors by doctors. Every week on the pod, we'll be bringing you conversations which shine light in dark places, normalise the doctor journey, ease unnecessary suffering, and give you actionable steps to thrive in all facets of your life. So grab a cuppa and get cozy for this week's episode of Am I Doing It Wrong? The podcast for doctors by doctors.
Hello, my beautiful friends, our Dr. Humans, and welcome back to the potty. Today, we've got an episode that we know is going to hit you right in the heart, which is on the pain and the challenges of being on call. And here, we're not really just talking about, the intellectual side of medicine in terms of being on call and going in there and doing the work. We really want to talk more about the aspect of being on call, that it's the struggles of fitting on call into your life and experiencing that on call, that like 24/7 around the clock phone, like there, like sort of threatening you at all times kind of feeling that comes with that. And then all the ways that we behaviorally try to cope with all the challenges of being on call. So in this particular episode, I think there are just so many different paths that we could take with this. We could do a whole series on this. So please let us know down below if there's an aspect of being on call that you really struggle with, that you'd love for us to talk about, to unpack, and to offer some strategies and hopefully solutions for, because this is a really important discussion. It's pretty industry specific. Of course, there are many other professions that have on-call services, but we all know that medicine has some extra special challenges with being on call. And I also find that the frequency of which we are on call in medicine seems to be a lot higher than in other industries as well. It's just a normal part of our week, if not fortnight, if not month for many of us. And it can be significantly disruptive. So we've got a couple of different aspects we want to talk about. But Kristeen, when you think about being on call, when you think about your experiences of being on call, what are kind of the main pain points or challenges that come up for you?
Well, see, this is the thing, Beck, because, oh my goodness, because I feel like there is a way to be a functional human on call who is happy. Like I've seen other colleagues do it. I know of people who are like, oh, I just go for dinner and I just live my life normally when I'm on call. And oh, it doesn't really bother me to get phone calls and da-da-da. And I'm over here being this different type of human where I cannot settle in to any joy on call. Like, I think this is a Kristeen thing. And so I was actually keen to see if you could give me any advice, Beck, because I don't know about, we'll probably have a mix of people listening, but maybe some of you will resonate with this. But when I was younger, I guess, when I was on call, there was a lot of sleep deprivation that came with it and a lot of uncertainty and fear over not being able to answer the question, right? But nowadays, it's more about just that kind of feeling like a bomb's going to go off. I can't fully relax into things. And I like to do a lot of deep work and creative work. And I like to have this separation between like I've gone to work and I'm now at home. And I really don't like things invading my space. I don't like the sound of my phone when I'm on call. It like gives me like an emotional response. I get scared. Like I live my life differently. So for example, when I'm on call for transplant calls from Donate Life, and they take a long time. It's like anywhere between 1 to 3 hours of a block of time if you get that call. And if I get that call and I was out having a nice celebration with my partner, or if I went to the gym or something like that, I don't see that that's functional, because if I get a transplant call, I'm going to have to leave there or whatever it is. And so when I'm on call, I build my life around being on call. I don't go out. I'll just be in my house or I'll be at the hospital. And that's the two places I'll go. And obviously supermarket and stuff. But I'm never far away. Like I've got like a radius of place that I'm allowed to go away from my house in case I need to drive back for a transplant call. And so it's this thing where I really dislike being on call. And even through the day, like maybe I've done my ward rounds and I'm at home and I'm doing my business side of things and I'm doing other work. I feel like sometimes I get to this place where I'm like, I'm going to be great today. Everything's going well. I've sorted everything out and I'm just going to do some deep work. I'm going to live life normally. People tell me I can live my life normally on call. Then all of a sudden I'll get a phone call, and it's that task switching thing. Like even if that phone call was super easy to deal with, the fact that I got interrupted has changed my energy. I can now no longer get back to what I was working on. And I just feel like I don't have control over my time or control over my attention or focus. And the whole thing really just disrupts my apple cart. And so I think it's a really interesting thing. And I feel like I sound very dramatic, but I'm just, I just genuinely don't like the feeling of being on call and on all of the multiple facets. Yeah, anyway, am I alone? I don't know. What would you say about all of that dysfunction?
My body's just filled with compassion, to be honest. I actually think on call is a really rough thing. I think it's a really hard part of the job that we do. I think when most people think about doctors, they think about the normal hours we do. And they're already like, wow, that's such a crazy job. And then actually on top of that, and the stuff that's probably the hardest for a lot of us is the additional on-call stuff that really creates the most havoc, challenge. So I'm just filled with compassion. I've coached so many clients over the years on the challenge of being on call. One of the people that comes to mind is an obstetrician, because she was just on call so frequently. And I just, doing obstetrics, my mind is just blown by, I know all on call is challenging, but when I really immersed myself in her situation of being on call for obstetrics, and also like having a private aspect, which is like, when does it ever stop? It kind of shocks my body to the core to think about what she juggles with that. And the only way that we could see to move forwards, because she loves her job, and she wasn't going to cut back. She wasn't going to stop any of the services she was offering at this time. And yet, when she was on call, she had such an understandably bad experience, kind of in the same way. One of the things we were talking about was just being able to go to the gym, and she was talking about showing up to the gym in like you're basically lycra. You go to the gym, she's got health goals. And then the fear of being called into the hospital while you're at the gym and basically having to go there in your gym clothes amongst all the other things as well. And it was just one of the things, and it was stopping her from just being able to execute on the exercise regime. She had the same kind of thoughts as you, which was like, if I'm going to get interrupted, then I don't want to do it. If I'm going to get interrupted, then it's not worth it. And you can see how much that shrinks your life and stops you from being the person that you want to be, whether you're on call once a month, but very much so, intensely so if you're on call multiple times a week or consecutive days in a row, like maybe you do one of those rolling, 7 days on, 7 days off things. We need to address this problem, because it's just not good enough for me to have all these incredible physicians like you, incredible doctors who aren't living their life in a way that's really aligned with them while they're on call. They're putting their lives and they're putting your best self to the side because you're on call. And there are solutions to this, and these solutions need to come with the way that we think about the consequences and what we're willing to do. So you told me a couple of things that made it difficult for you to be on call. You don't like being interrupted, and you don't like this having your space invaded, and you don't like the idea that if you are out doing something joyful, or you've invested in doing something because you transited there, or you start, I don't know, maybe even just sinking into the experience of it and enjoying it, and then you have to leave. There's some of the things that bother you. And we haven't quite got enough information yet to work out what we can do to make this experience better for you. So if I can just ask a couple more questions, and the answers to these might not necessarily come just to your mind instantly. Just sit back and get really interested in yourself. What is the problem with being interrupted? So give me a scenario. When you told me, I just don't like being interrupted, having my space invaded, give me a scenario that you're thinking about and tell me what the problem is with being interrupted.
Yeah, I feel like it really doesn't matter what scenario it is, because my business work is joy. And if I had gone for dinner or done something else, that's also joy, right? So something else that I'm not, this sounds terrible. It's not that clinical work is not joyful, but when I'm in clinic, there's a compartment where I'm in clinic. And then after that, I want it to be more in time. It's so interesting. I'm fascinated by how my mind works. But I think what it is there's like an energy of like a momentum, a forward movement into like a leaning in and a letting go of some sort that comes when you're doing like maybe a deep task, or if you're out for dinner with your partner, you want to be completely present. You just want to have that experience go a certain way. But there's also like a build-up of momentum. So if I'm building momentum and I'm getting into something, it feels like the phone call then knocks me out of a happier place. That sounds awful. Hashtag the truth. But it's an energetic disruption. It totally knocks me off, and I find it really hard to get back on. Like it ends whatever it was. So it's the termination of the happy place, the peaceful inner peace, happy place.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Really interested in what's happening internally for you here, because you're buffing along, happy as anything, doing the things you love that bring you joy. This phone call comes along, and is it a transplant call? Is that, or
A transplant call is the worst case scenario, only because it's then cancel my everything. This needs my undivided attention. It's not like a quick, I think a lot of people when they're on call, it's like they're interested in a question, they answer it. And that does knock me off just from a task switching point of view. Yeah. But the transplant is a consuming thing where you then make about 90 phone calls in amongst all that. Yeah.
Okay, let's go with the worst case scenario just to cover our bases here. So you're in your peaceful, joyful, happy place. Are you out to dinner? Are you doing some sort of business work?
I'm never out to dinner on call because of this issue that I'm having. We don't live our life that way. So I say I'm at home and I'm working on something joyful. Yeah.
Okay, amazing. Yeah. So you get the call, and in the first couple of seconds, you work out it's a transplant call. How do you feel in that moment? Drop into your body.
Upset and angry.
Upset.
Not all the time. Like, this is the thing. If I live my life in a way that I don't do anything in case I get the transplant call, I don't get that feeling of being upset and angry. But if I'm knee deep in something that's my happy place, it's like a kid being removed from the sand pit without a snack to go to.
Why? Why are you upset and angry when you're in the sand pit?
I think it's because it's a control thing. I don't have control over my time or my attention. I'm not being intentional, and I feel happiest when I'm living my life in an intentional way. And I know that's an absolute luxury and a privilege, but it's something that if I get knocked out of, it feels invasive and it feels like I'm not free. It's a freedom problem as well.
So that's very different from if you weren't like in one of those joyful places, because you can still see the same thought of, I don't have control over my time, because you're just doing something non-joyful and they're like, hey, we need your time right now. So dig a little bit deeper, and what specifically is it about when you're in the sandpit, when you're having that joyful time, when you are doing that aligned, intentional work, living your life that way? Why is that such a problem to get interrupted?
I think it's flow. Do you know what I mean? Flow is such a beautiful place, but it takes a little bit to get into the flow. But then once you're in flow, you're in like a sense of consciousness or whatever it is, like a mode that is like extremely productive. And I think that's what I was saying about that momentum. And it's like, I'm on the conveyor belt, and then I get literally knocked off the conveyor belt and I cannot get back on. And then it feels like I've lost something. It feels like there's been a sabotage or some kind of, because whatever I was doing, I would have probably been quite happy about the progress I was making.
Yeah.
And especially if this happens on a repeated, you get back on the treadmill, make a tiny little bit more progress, you get another call, and then you're like, I cannot deal with this. I'm out, tapping out. I'm so angry right now. So it's the anger that comes from being kicked out of flow, which is a beautiful, beautiful place.
And excuse my very particular questions. I know what you're saying, but I want to hear the words from you. What have you lost in that moment? You're in flow. You took the time to get into flow. You're now in that extremely productive place that you talk about. What have you lost in that moment now that you've got that transplant call?
Like the progress that I was trying to make, like I've lost meaningful productivity and I've lost intentionality. Yeah. And I've lost control. That's the words that come up.
And what does the meaningful productivity like amount for you? What does it create?
Well, it's like the next step on the whatever I'm working towards. I find that my work is quite purposeful, and so it's got a bigger picture, but it's also quite like to do the work that I do, it does take a lot of time. And I think I've probably had previous experiences, not just being on call, but places in my career where there was other distractions and demands that took things away from what I was trying to achieve. And I'm talking years and years of delay on what I was trying to do. And it just doesn't feel acceptable to me anymore because I feel like I put things on the back burner so much because of work and because of my clinical role that it's like another example of that. It stings a bit.
Yeah, I feel that too. Because what your thoughts are really saying here as we're digging deeper and deeper is it's not just about that moment of being interrupted and just about that productivity lost in that particular task, but your brain's like, I know what this means. I know what this amounts to. This means that my goals and the impact that I want to have and living that intentional life that I want to have, it's being delayed. It's not just about the task right now, but you're like, I've been in this situation before where I've been working so hard, my best intentions. And despite that, I've had the pain of not being able to achieve all that I know that I'm capable of. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. It's interesting that you point that out. It's so much bigger than the moment. Yeah. But I
And
didn't see that before.
Yeah, it's like your life purpose as well. It's like you're having your life purpose and what you want to achieve in your life. I know this, guys, from knowing Kristeen and knowing how important the impact that her business has in the world. This is like what beats her heart in the days. Helping her people in medical education. This isn't just like, oh, I'm not going to get to achieve my goal in 2025. It's I'm not going to get to live my life in the way that is fulfilling to me. I'm not going to be able to make the contribution that I know that I'm meant to make and I know that I can make. And just think about how painful that is. Yeah, like a loss of control is something that we all resonate with, and it's pretty reasonably factual about us all being on call and somebody else is dictating your time because we've all decided that the patient's health is a priority, and therefore that kind of takes precedent. It takes control of our lives because we've opted into that. But for Kristeen, it's not just about not having control. It's about what, her brain is making it mean. Not being able to control this moment means about her greater ability to have an impact and live the way she wants to live in life. I just want to invite you guys to reflect on that in your own life as well, because I have things that I'm particularly sensitive about. We all have those things that, quote, trigger us, that we overreact to. Again, that's in quotation marks because I don't really believe in overreacting. And the reason I don't believe in overreacting is because I'm having a big reaction to this particular moment, because it's not about the moment. It's about the fact that if I am, just as an example, I was in pathology having a test this morning and it was a very long test and the test was running behind. It was on a little schedule. And Kristeen and I had planned to sit down and record these potties for you. And the podcast is so important to us. Me showing up to Kristeen time is so important to us. And when the pathology team were like going slowly, there were trainees and things were not running on time, I almost felt like a welling up and wanting to cry in that moment when I was like, I'm not going to make the podcast on time, and quote, overreaction. But the reason is because it's not just because I need to get to a meeting on time because I'm a perfectionist. It's because I make it mean that I'm not being respectful of Kristeen's time, that I'm not respecting the podcast, and that the podcast might not be able to continue if I can't show up at the times I can achieve. So see, it's my thoughts that go on top of that quite like mundane, pretty simple, nobody died situation, but my thoughts create that painful reaction for me. Whenever you have a big reaction, a painful reaction, whenever you feel the energy zapped out of you or intensely stress kind of energy built up in you, this is an invitation to not judge yourself and be like, why are you overreacting? But to get really interested. There's something here that matters to you. And the goal here for Kristeen is not going to be to just be cool and stop caring about the impact that she's going to have in the world. Now that we have this bit of information, we can see the situation is she's on call. She's not going to stop being on call anytime soon. She's not going to stop offering this transplant service anytime soon. This is something that she wants to do. And simultaneously, she has a big contribution goal in her life. Those two things coexist. At the moment, the way that we're treating them is when she gets interrupted, when on call, which is inevitable, we have this painful story about what it means about this other thing that's really important to her. The only way to stop experiencing this pain is to question that story and ultimately to change that story. And if she doesn't want to change that story, we should probably consider that maybe the other option is to change the circumstance. Maybe she needs to stop being on call, and maybe she needs to stop pursuing her business. But I know she's not going to pick either of those. So let's change the story, right? So if you want to keep all the things that you've got in your life, don't make your only option to keep it and then to feel the pain and suffering of that. Make the option to keep it and explore what's hurting you in that scenario and see where you can relieve some of that burden. We're not going to go into like a proper coaching session or anything right here, but I'm just interested, Kristeen, like when we brought up this connection now, please don't feel pressured to be like, oh yes, I can see that one thing doesn't lead to the other. But I'm interested after bringing up the pain of being interrupted in that moment of doing that task and being in flow, and the way that like a lot of that pain is coming from you making that mean, your brain making that mean you're not going to achieve the contribution that you want to achieve. Can you just tell me, does that still feel true to you? That being interrupted in that one flow task, or maybe it's a couple of flow, I don't know how many transplant calls do you get on a weekend?
It's not a lot. It's just the fact that it could happen at any moment. You know what I mean?
Yep,
it's like
that as well. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So when that interruption happens, say it's once, twice, 3 times in that on-call period, does that interruption really translate to you not achieving the contribution that you want to make? That's what your brain is currently making it mean. Just want you to sit and question, is it possible that I will still achieve the contribution I want to make and I can get interrupted on this on-call shift during flow?
Yeah, I mean, what comes up for me there, like I'm sitting thinking about it, and I guess just obviously this is very unique to me, but for everyone listening, I think it was great when you said there's something that matters to you, and the fact that's been disrupted gives you this emotional response. And I guess what you're saying is it's lovely to look and see the underneath of why and what it was that mattered to you, and then maybe change the story in order to change how you feel. Everything that you've brought up is absolutely true and it's super interesting. But in terms of changing the story or having a new thought process, I still think that the best way to, like in terms of preventing this horrible feeling, is to just not get started, which is not the solution and it's not what you're saying. But
so let's look at that thought.
Yeah.
So, and this is what you do, guys. You listen to the way that your brain responds. You don't have to come up with a solution straight away, but you just like, oh, what does my brain think about this? And what does my brain think about this? Because now we can ask the next question, like, oh, okay, so at the moment, your brain's calculating. So your goal is to be on call and to contribute, to maximize your contribution in your business. Your brain's currently saying that if I start a task and get interrupted, so you started a task, you've gotten into flow, you've done some work, and you get interrupted, you're in a worse position in terms of having everything you want in life than if you didn't start it at all. What comes up?
Yeah, that doesn't feel true. That feels ridiculous when you say it like that. But I guess it's just that avoidance of pain. It's the avoidance of pain. I don't want to feel the pain of being interrupted.
Yes.
So if I don't do the thing, then I won't get interrupted because I wasn't doing anything to interrupt in the first place.
Yes, and that's so insightful. A lot of people can't admit that to themselves or don't have the emotional awareness to even realize, like, I'm feeling upset and angry or whatever you're feeling in that moment. Because now we've got a different question to ask ourselves. And again, no pressure to just come to a solution here. But the next question that we can ask is, bringing this information we've got together about how your brain's making decisions right now, we're like, okay, brain, so if it meant that I continued to get to be on call and be this kind of person that I want to be, who does this on-call service, and my two options here are now, I can enter flow and get some work done, make some contribution to my business goal simultaneously. But it comes at the price of feeling the emotion of upset, angry, disappointment. Or my other option is I cannot invest any time. I cannot make any intentions to do any work, business work during that on-call time. And what I get back from that is, the trade-off of that is, I don't have to feel angry, upset, disappointed. Now we have a very different decision to make here. What comes up for you there?
I'm just like literally writing down. It's so interesting as you're saying that. I just realized like I'm actually letting on call steal more from me by avoiding this pain, because like you say, I could make at least some progress, but now I've got this thing where I just put my business on hold for 2 weeks, like literally, and then that makes me feel extreme pain even on the few weeks that come after that. Like I'm allowing on call to steal more from me by being resistant to it.
Yes. How do you feel in that space when you've realized you're looking back and seeing, I put my business on pause for 2 to 3 weeks? How does that feel?
That doesn't feel good, and I think that's why I don't like like there's the micro and then there's the macro, and you're like, yeah, both of them are bad. But I think this makes me more determined to kind of look under the hood here and kind of understand where I'm part of this problem, or I'm actually the center of this problem, as opposed to the on-call itself. Like, I think that's actually, I mean, annoying but helpful.
It's so annoying when we come to this realization, but it doesn't even need to be framed in that way. You're not the problem or a part of the problem. Like, you're just a human who fundamentally tries to avoid feeling bad. That is just our default all the time. And your brain's just like, that was the next place that I was going to go with this, which is you believe that by not investing and creating that flow space for yourself, and then therefore not getting interrupted during flow, you believe that you're avoiding negative emotions, but you're not. You're just trading them for different negative emotions, perhaps at a different time. That insight that you had about the fact that in retrospect, you don't feel good, that's one thing. But I would hazard a guess that if you're in a space of avoidance, you've got this wanting, this desire to work in your business. Like, I know what you're like. You're like 24/7, wake up, work in my business. Let's do it. Let's go. But for you to spend this time period on call, putting that off the table for yourself because of fear of feeling emotions, like, that doesn't feel good either. And so it's just a bit of a lie that we tell ourselves, that we're avoiding pain. We're avoiding feeling bad by avoiding that moment of being interrupted and the anger, disappointment. You're just trading the negative emotions for different negative emotions. This works in life in general, guys, as well. It's not that you arrive somewhere in life and suddenly, because you've made your life perfect and done everything right, and you're now in this career or with this person, now you don't have to feel negative emotions anymore. It's the same with being on call and whether you decide to go to the gym or work in your business or not. In neither of those scenarios do you get to avoid negative emotions. We need to not make avoiding negative emotions the goal, and we need to develop a willingness to feel and allow and not be hurt by our own negative emotions. We don't have time to talk about that today, but that's a really critical coaching process. It's one of the things that makes you unshakable, and it's absolutely required. Any avoidance, addiction type behavior is centered around trying to feel better and trying to avoid feeling bad. It's really important work to do. You can bring it back to the center of basically any challenge we have in our lives. We want to feel better, we want to avoid the bad feelings, and we want to do it as efficiently as possible.
Yeah. And it's funny, I'm just thinking, because this podcast, the way we've done it, the reason we actually did this was because at the start, Beck wanted to talk about a certain thing about being on call. And I was like, no, I cannot. I do not resonate with being on call. We can't do it that way. And I was like, why don't you help me to feel better on call? So just like stealing coaching on the podcast. It wasn't planned or anything. Beck had a different idea for today. But I think it's funny because this is what we do in Dear Darling. And I guess I actually didn't even realize I had this on-call problem until you suggested doing a podcast episode on it and everything. And I think it's just, yeah, there's just always blind spots. There's
Mm.
always blind spots, but it's so interesting how you can help us unravel it. You're such a wizard. I say this to you all the time. Thank you
Oh,
so much,
thank
Beck.
you. Thank you. I love doing this work because it's just unnecessary pain. You see, in Kristeen's case, everything is coming from the best intentions. She's got this pain because she's trying to do everything for everyone and have the most impact. It's such a beautiful thing. And so many doctors are just in the same position. They're trying to do it all and they're not willing to give up things that are important to them. And then we just have these little things that we need to unravel that make all the difference in terms of how we feel when we go about doing this. And full transparency, guys, the reason that I brought up this kind of topic in the first place was because I realized I'd spent the last 2 weeks feeling restricted in my life only because of these stories that I had in my mind. And it wasn't actually until I myself am in a group coaching program and I was listening to someone getting coached on drinking. They'd gone completely off drinking and they wanted to now just have like a drink or a couple of drinks with their husband or whatever on a weekend. And they were feeling really restricted and like they were missing out. They were feeling FOMO because of that. I realized that recently in my life, I was making myself feel like I was missing out too because I had a restriction. I couldn't have this one particular thing that I wanted. And that feeling of being restricted, and again, I know this is really hard to receive, but this is coming from me needing to do this work on myself. I'm not just telling you this is work that I've realized that I need to do in this particular part of my life. I didn't need to feel restricted. I wanted to drink in that moment. I'm no alcoholic, guys, but I love that feeling of particularly being out with my partner, having a couple of drinks, being like a bit disinhibited and you just say whatever and you're a bit silly. I love that silly feeling. And I was wanting that in this situation. When I couldn't have it, I felt restricted. And realizing again, just kind of like the same little questioning process we did with Kristeen, it wasn't the alcohol that I wanted. It was the feeling. It was the disinhibition. It was the silliness. It was the playfulness. It was feeling like I am involved in the situation because I was also telling myself, they're drinking, I'm not drinking, so I'm somehow not involved. They're all lies. And in particular, I could just choose to be playful and silly and disinhibited at the time. And it wasn't until I listened to somebody else getting coached on this that I was like, oh, me, I'm doing that. I'm making this problem for myself too. It's just this process of nobody's perfect. You do not need to judge yourself when you find these thoughts. And that's probably something really worth saying about you, Kristeen. You're so humble and resilient, resourceful when it comes to exploring your thoughts now. It's just something that I really think it's one of the benefits of doing coaching work, the way that you stop judging yourself about the automatic thoughts and how your brain's automatically behaving. And instead you just get to see it, be like sometimes humid, sometimes just perplexed or curious, but then without the judgment drama, you just get to be like, oh, okay, next, what do I want to do from here? Am I going to stop doing that? Yeah, I'm going to stop doing that. Don't love it. And you just get to move forwards. And so I am looking forwards to having, particularly the next week, I'm going to be really purposeful about being, and I already have been over the last couple of days. It's been great. Being more purposeful about being that playful and joyous, more kind of like disinhibited, free flowy self that I like, that part of myself that I like when I'm a little bit tipsy. I feel like we shouldn't be talking about alcohol on a podcast, on a doctor's podcast, but here we are.
I love being silly though. And yeah, and I actually don't drink any alcohol, but I think being around people who do drink alcohol, they can be contagious. Yeah, I totally support it.
They're more authentic. I think it's that disinhibition effect. And it's really, I think part of it is we don't realize how muted we are. Those little things and particular situations help bring out our authenticity, but we don't often live there. We often live under a little bit of judgment and a little bit of, oh, don't say that, or don't talk too much, or don't be too much, whatever. So it's just, yeah, it's actually a really beautiful thing for me to realize, wait a second, I have total control of this. And actually it's something that I want to be more like that. In particular context, I don't think that my colleagues at work will particularly appreciate me showing up basically a bit tipsy looking. There might be
reinvent healthcare.
Yeah.
Beck's onto it.
No alcohol tipsiness. We'll probably get banned. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. And please let us know, what do you struggle with when it comes to being on call? Because there is a lot more that comes from with this. Oh my goodness, the conversations I've had over the years about this. And I think we all tend to just think that it just is what it is. And what it is a really bad, terrible thing. And we just have to like hold our breath and grit through it. But you don't have to live your life that way. And you deserve to live your full life while being on call. And for someone like you who's generous enough to decide to be on call, to decide to give that service to the healthcare system, which isn't proportionately remunerated in most cases. It truly is a service in terms of what it costs the physician. I really hope that you can turn around and recognize how much you deserve to have a good experience given what you're doing. So thank you so much for watching. Let us know what you think, and we can't wait to see you in our next one.
I've been waiting all my life for something. I've been down the darkest roads and up in the clouds, but I've always felt that something's missing. That was until I found you right there in